Hello, my name is Gabriel Garcia de la Cadena. I am a student at GCU, studying to be a history teacher. I am recording this for a assignment in my 455 N class, 445 N class, sorry, for English language learners. And I shall begin. So the first question I need to answer is explain Arizona's definition of an English learner. Essentially, the way Arizona explains an English language learner is a basically a child or a minor of sorts who does not speak English or is English is their second language and they can't properly perform or communicate in normal day-to-day tasks in a classroom, essentially. Question two asks, I briefly discussed the distinctions between the following instructional program models, the ESL, bilingual, sheltered English instruction, and structured English immersion. So this is the first one, but for bilingual education, it is when all the students' works in the classroom are translated into their native tongues, and essentially what they are doing is learning side by side English and their native tongue. So they're able to still do the assignments without worry of not being able to do it, essentially. And so they're always just learning side by side. In a sheltered English immersion, the entire structure of the lesson is in English with some very limited need for translating into the native language for the students. And for the teacher to it also requires the teacher not have to have know the native language as well. However, with some light translating is while some light translating is allowed, students must still write in English, and this is where the term for sheltered comes in as it represents the lack of language being allowed outside of English. ESL programs approach is a bit different from bilingual. While students can be helped in their native language by teachers, the difference is that the teachers aren't required to be proficient in the student's native tongue. And the way the program works is the students are in a normal classroom for most of the day, essentially like not with non-English language learners. And and at some point, the students are pulled from their class to be taught English with other EL students for a few hours of the day before returning to that normal classroom, essentially. Uh, Last is the instructional approach for teaching EL students is very simple. It is when teachers use visual aids or physical activities or any other methods that essentially that are made to help be able to understand the students understand English better and easier using methods that aren't just directly translating or just directly teaching. It's supposed to be like activities that really help the student learn in different ways. Now, next question, question three, it asks, briefly describe Arizona's language development approach and the synthesis of the research around ELLs. So Arizona uses the SEI as the program of choice for teaching EL students. This would require students to have 4 hours minimum a day in school where they're learning English language development. While before they use to have bilingual programs, now before this, Arizona used to have bilingual programs. That was their thing. They did eventually switch to ESI, believing it would be better. And soon after, Arizona would pass laws that would also not allow teachers to be able to translate work at all to making the classroom complete, which would cause the classroom to be completely English. So there's no room for that light translating essentially here in Arizona. Question four asks that I briefly discuss the distinctions between the following instructional program. I'm sorry, my bad. Explain student agency and its importance to the instructions of ELLs. So student agency, this is essentially when your students have a bit more say in their education. Teachers, instead of saying, hey, I'm just telling you this is important because it's part of the test, like they actually teachers will tell, hey, the student, this is important because this will affect you in your daily life here or there. Essentially, this is very important for EL students because a lot of EL students do suffer from a sort of confidence issues. And this being because they can't communicate usually effectively, they feel like outcasts, and they feel like a problem. And so what student agency does is it builds that confidence. It makes the student feel heard. It makes the student not feel like they're just a bother. This allows them to have more confidence, to keep working, and not just give up on themselves and their education, which is something that commonly does happen due to just feeling this, with students feeling this way. So that's why it's very important for them to be able to um the the student agency is very much addressed by their teachers. Uh, Now question 5 asks, I explain each of the principles of Arizona language development approach. Uh, so essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to read what the approach is for like each stage or 4 stages, and then I'll tell you what they mean after. So for the first one, English language learner or EL students bring rich linguistic resources and cultural knowledge with them to the school environment. All systems and programs leverage this asset and provide opportunities for students to demonstrate these contributions. All system programs align with well-assessed behaviors and expectations and provide opportunities and support to ensure culturally linguistically sustaining practices for EL students. To break this down from the fancy teacher jargon, the first stage basically says that Arizona recognizes that that EL students and see them as someone who brings a lot of knowledge from their country and a lot of cultural knowledge as well. I mean, they bring their practices and expose people to their culture. And in this country, we take pride in the fact that it's not just one culture here, it is a melting pot of cultures. And Arizona says that these cultures being brought over be able to can grow a society. So that's why they believe ELLs are very, very important to uh, the state and in general to the country as well. And it says that and it just goes into a little that they make sure that the students are receiving the standards required to so that they have a good education, so that they're basically saying, hey, like, we are meeting our standards, in some cases going above, these students are getting a good education. Right. The next one stage is uh, that the all educators share the responsibility for designing instructions that integrate language and literacy development with content learning. So essentially what they're saying is the second stage addresses the responsibility of teaching, and that is the educator's job. The stage makes it clear that the educators are responsible for writing the lessons, making sure that every student meets the standards required for these EL programs. And that's what they're saying. They're basically saying in stage 2, again, the most of the pressure and responsibilities on the educator for these programs. Stage 3 says explicit language instruction is a critical opportunity to intentionally support English language learners. Students in developing the discourse practice, they need to engage with rigorous grade level disciplinary content. So all stage 3 says essentially they use explicit language instruction. Now, explicit language instruction is essentially is that the students are taught clearly, so they make sure the students know exactly what they're learning and directly, so that the students aren't confused in any way about what they're learning. They are made sure that every student is understanding and where they are going. Uh, and that's what they're saying, is that in this third stage that we make sure every student is where they need to be and that they understand everything they are learning. The last stage is districts and schools use English language proficiency standards, diagnostic tools, formative assessment practices, and some summative assessments to measure progress of English language learners, student language and content knowledge to inform instruction. This fourth stage is essentially bringing up what they kind of said in the first stage, which was the fourth stage addresses that the programs are using all the tools and assessment practice needed to properly teach EL students. That is essentially all they are saying. They're saying that we use every assessment, every tool, every method of teaching that works, that everything we do is specifically to help make sure that these English language learners are learning what they need to learn and properly doing their work. That is the fourth stage is all they're saying for the fourth stage. Now for the last discussion, question, I mean, this says discuss components of Arizona's approved research-based SEI models, which are newcomer, pullout, and 2 hour, and the 50-50 dual language immersion. So simple enough. The pullout SCI model is the students spend 60 to 50 minutes daily in EL groups only. Then they'd go to integrated instruction, which is where they learn with ELs and non-ELs at the same time when it comes to English. And then for the remainder of the day, they're doing normal academic stuff with non-ELs as well. So there's no more separation after that. The 2 hour model says that the targeted instruction, which means EL only, is around 120 to 100 minutes a day. So about 2 hours, give or take. Then they do integrated instruction with English for however long it is with them. But essentially all it is the rest of the days with normal non-EL students learning, all their different academic stuff. And it's all taught in English, obviously. Newcomer SEI model is when the target instruction is about 2 hours long as well with EL students. Then there's another 2 hour of learning English with ELs and non-ELs. And then at the end, the rest is just them together learning the rest of their normal stuff. Now, this other one here is 50-50 DLI. So it's 30 minutes of ELs only, 90 minutes to 75 minutes of ELs and non-ELs. And then the remainder of the day is together learning their normal academic stuff. Now, while this is allowed in Arizona, the catch is you have to file a sort of like paperwork to approve to the government to approve for the school to teach this method. So that is all there is today. That's all the questions. And yeah, have a nice day.